Hello, welcome back to Cinora. Today I am going to be creating an animation for my other YouTube channel because I accidentally deleted the project file, and although I've got the animations saved in various ways, I thought, you know what, this is an opportunity for me to make something new in the new era of running that channel. I wanted to dive into how I did this and also talk a little bit about how I got into animation because I think that might be helpful for people. So that's what today's video is all about. So I ran Ashon Film from 2020 right round until kind of present day, although I haven't posted a single video in 2025. Basically, when I started Cinora, my time was split up a little bit, and so Ashon Film took a back seat. But now I have found myself with enough time to put into it again, and so I figured that I would take a look at making some videos. So I shot one, and then I went to edit it, and I had deleted the project file. Not a great start. But like I say, I saw this as an opportunity because I hadn't rebranded the channel for a little while and I like to keep it up to date and current. It also had a very distinct editing style that I feel has passed now. YouTube has become a place for more honest and raw conversation and watching someone talk about something quite honestly without going too hard on an edit. Now, of course, I still jump cut, but that's more because I can't get a sentence out properly. But I have been moving away from the style that Ashon Film did for a long time, and that was really fast cuts, lots of sound effects, lots of memes thread in throughout the video. I would look at my timeline, and if I felt like there was a really long gap between graphics, I would find a way to bring in more. And that's not the vibe anymore. But I am a lover of chapters in videos. I love to have a bit of structure. Not only do I find it nice to watch videos that work that way, but I myself find it easier to make the videos and produce them if I've got some structure. So I'm going to be making some intertitles and probably a new title and end card for Ashon Film. I've got a ton of inspiration here on Pinterest, and I am very much going down that new agey, space age vibe. My channel basically tackles new age practices or things that are happening culturally that are all about mindfulness, well-being, or I guess to a degree, life beyond this plane. So that's the vibe I'm going for. I've got all sorts of abstract images in here that I really love. And so I'm drawing a bit of inspiration from each of them. We're going to start with this very cool one here. Here we go. Let's draw some stuff. So I got into animation a little bit haphazardly, but it was also something that I had wanted to do for such a long time. So when I was at uni, I learned a bit of everything in filmmaking, and I did do a module in animation. But I didn't actually come away with a finished animation project. But something I had done when I was at college and uni was stop animation. And that always made sense to me. I really, really loved working in stop animation. The problem with it is that it's extremely expensive because you have to buy all of the materials in order to make the little world and people or objects or characters, whatever they may be. And I did attempt to do another stop animation after uni, but it was just such a big project to undertake on your own. I always felt really comfortable editing. It was my favourite part of the entire filmmaking process. And so everything I did after uni, I formed around my skills in editing. And eventually I got a job as a creative lead in a marketing department, and as part of that job, I had to make motion graphics, and they were very light. It was mostly just text revealing and a little bit of lines moving and really, really light graphics. But understanding the process of how to do that made me feel like I could actually properly animate something if I put my mind to it. So in the summer of 2020, I came up with an idea for a TV series. It was going to be an animation, and I fleshed out 10 episodes and how the series arc would flow, what the characters were like. At that point in time, I didn't have any real connections in the TV world, and it was really just the fact that I had all this free time. I thought I better flex my imagination. And I came up with this idea of two girls who were running a YouTube channel to hunt ghosts. And I thought that in order to pitch it, it would be a good idea to make an animation from the first episode. So it wasn't the entire episode, it was 10 minutes of them actually on the ghost hunt. And it was called Spooky Memes because I thought that that would be a really searchable term and that it would gather a bit of an audience. And I hired two women from Star Now to voice the characters. And I spent about 4 months learning how to animate as well as animating this short film. Honestly, I would recommend this as a method because it was really low stakes. There wasn't a deadline, there was no pressure. It was something I had come up with by myself and just wanted to prove to myself that I could do. I felt comfortable being able to create the backgrounds. I used Adobe Illustrator for this and just really thought about how would a scene take place in a room? What kind of shots would I capture if I was actually shooting it? So that was a really big part of the project. Probably bigger even than animating the characters. Because what I did was I went on Adobe's tutorials and I taught myself how to use Character Animator. The way it works is you create a wireframe of a character and then you use motion capture of your own face in order to animate them. You set the parameters within Character Animator. So when you do something with your face, it knows how to translate that into what the character does with theirs. And then you could move their body parts by dragging and clicking. And you could also make adjustments to what was going on with their face as well. Doing the walk cycle was pretty difficult. There was one scene where you actually see a character and their legs like move, one in front of the other like a normal walking person. That was quite hard. I set myself the deadline of Halloween because I felt like that was an apt day to bring out a story about two YouTubers trying to find ghosts. And I chipped away at it for several months. I made lots of little changes and tweaks in the lead up to it. And ultimately, I felt like, you know what? This is just a project that I have thrown together myself. If it isn't an amazing success, it's fine. It was one of many hobbies I picked up during lockdown. So I brought it out on Halloween and revealed to everybody that I had been chipping away an animation project, and they were all like, what the actual fuck? Because I didn't tell anybody that I was working on it. That was my style back then. I liked to be very secretive. And actually I had a really good response to it. It did really well online and it found the audience that I was hoping for. It then went on to some festivals and I ended up winning an award for Best Animation and being nominated for Best Animation in some festivals as well. It's not what you chase, you don't go for that kind of stuff, and these film festivals were very small and not very well known, but there was some validation in there for me that felt good. So after that, I just did some little forms of animation. I would bring things into my Ashon Film YouTube channel and I would try and anything I was working on be like, would you like me to illustrate or animate that? And it began to kind of take off. I ended up getting a commission with Powa Scotland, which was a music collective. They got me to make their main website video about how they started. And then they commissioned me to make a lyric video once a month for the musicians that they were supporting. So I would get the song through, listen to it, come up with an idea, and then form an animated lyric video completely without a brief. I just ran with what I felt fitted the song. And I did that for about a year and a half, and there was loads of songs in the catalogue. I decided to go in a slightly different direction with this, literally. So Spooky Memes was a success. I got the gig doing some animation for Powa, and basically I was looking for any opportunity to animate stuff that I could. I ended up being a researcher with the BBC for a little while, and they were commissioning short online content, and it was very low budget, so it meant that anytime stock footage had been used, they needed to replace that with something that they didn't need to pay for. So I took that as an opportunity to illustrate and animate some of the things that people had cut to in the stock footage. So there was a guy who talked about his hometown and how it was famous for a brand of whiskey, and he'd used some stock footage of someone pouring a whiskey. So I got rid of that and made a little animation of the whiskey. And I continued doing this for a little while. Then through the BBC, I got to edit 2 compilation TV shows. So this was groupings of that online social content made into a mini TV show. And again, they were like, we absolutely can't use any of this stock stuff. We need to find a replacement. And I was like, I can do this. And I animated titles and little sections for one show in particular, which was called The Conscious Closet. It was about fast fashion, and there was a lot of stock footage of price tags or clothes or an illustration of the world. So I took this opportunity to make them myself. And then I was able to say that I had animated for television. It was completely true. Even though the credit that I got on that program was researcher, I had actually made those animations. And I knew that if anybody wanted to follow up with the producers of the program, that they would confirm that. So onto my CV it went. By this point, I had enough that I could create a showreel for myself. And that was extremely helpful because it meant that I could apply for other opportunities. I even made some profiles online where I listed myself as an animator first and foremost. My first big break was being asked to animate on a children's documentary for CBBC, I Won't Stand For It, because this was a much bigger project than I'd worked on before. I was working with a very loose brief that the director had set. They were editing the documentary and shooting a little bit of it whilst I was developing the boards for the animation. So I worked alongside a company that had an established visual effects and animation department. The way that it worked was that I was employed by the production and I worked from this office full of other animators who I could ask questions to and get their input on. I would say that this was a slightly intimidating part of my journey as an animator. I think the guys were great, but they were so much more advanced than I was in animation. And sometimes I felt like when I asked for help, they preferred to do it themselves rather than show me how to do it. So sometimes I would think, I would really like to learn how to do this thing, so I'm just going to have to figure it out. Otherwise, someone's going to take it from me. But what was good about that was that there was room for me to make mistakes. At one point, I animated an entire 50s style car because in the script it said, my parents arrived in a car. And this was around the 1950s. So I thought, okay, what does a car look like? Did all my research and pulled it together. And then when I presented the boards to the director, she was like, not that kind of car. It's more of a cart type thing, but people just call it a car. And I was like, okay. But it was nice because there was the room for that to happen. Similarly, when it came to the characters, I decided to go in the direction of character animator, which I'd done before. So their heads moved and their eyebrows moved, and it was all done through facial recognition. But when the director saw that, she felt that it was too much movement and that she wanted it to be a little bit more restricted. So I knew how I could do this in another way. It was just something I had never done before. And then I got the opportunity to add another style of animation onto the roster. And I think having projects like that where you can work for a really long time and figure things out as you go along, take risks and see if they pay off or if you have to go back to the drawing board. It is honestly so helpful to learning. And I think that's where, having done spooky memes, where I could do that, and then this other long project, every time I approached an animation, there were a few options in how to deliver it, and then I could figure out what best fit what we were making. I never filmed from this angle. This is very unusual for me. I think it's getting somewhere. It's still very bare bones, and I need to figure out how I'm going to put the title in there. After I did I Won't Stand For It, it was nominated for an RTS award and won awards at children's film festivals all over the world. It was a really, really big success. And I had really hoped that more projects like that would come around. And they kind of did and they kind of didn't. So I ended up through a sequence of events where I was making a short film with GMAC, then they assigned me a mentor, and that mentor was directing a documentary project that needed some animation, and in particular, animation from a neurodivergent person if possible. The stars aligned and I got another commission to animate. This project was a documentary about neurodivergent people who work in the screen industries. So I was hired to be in the film and talk about my approach to animation as a neurodivergent person, and then also animate the anecdotes that people brought out during the film. What a super fascinating project, honestly. This was really interesting because it was all about listening to what people had said in their interviews, in the rough cuts, and then thinking about how we could interpret that as a visual. And I worked with the director and the producer, and we came up with lots of tiny micro ideas. And then we came up with some solid, bigger ideas that sort of thread throughout the entire documentary. It's only half an hour and you can watch it online if you want to. But it was another big project and another one where it wasn't necessarily that I could make mistakes, but we could explore things and we could see how they landed. Again, there were some challenges within it where there were sequences that I had never approached before. Creating a book where the pages would turn. There was a few different ways to do that, and I think I explored them all. There's no one right way to do this kind of stuff, but you just find the one that you think works for you and the project that you're making. So that project went on for a longer term as well, although I didn't animate all in one block. We split it up so that we had some base animations, then we could get feedback and a further refinement on the edit, then come back to the animations and complete them. That film came out at the end of 2023, and 2023 was the year where a lot of commissions dried up and there wasn't that many opportunities for animation again. And I found myself a role in editing that kept me going full time, but now I really want to get back into the animation process. So doing this project is partly so that I can brush off the dust and get my skills back on track. It's not something that you forget how to do, it's just something that you've got to get your mind into the creative place of again. And I am so looking forward to cutting another show reel and finding some more animation work to do. So I've come up with a really cool idea. I downloaded a bundle of effects a few months ago and it was enormous. There was like maybe 1,000 different things. And so I've always kind of wanted to delve into it and find little things that I think could work out really well in my animations. And I've just found an effects bundle that's called CTR Interface 2. And I took a look through the elements and I found this circular scan, and applying it in with obviously adjusting to fit the animation that I've done. I just really think it's cool how these circles emerge from the door and then go back in. It's absolutely giving the gateway experience, out of body experience, living your new wave life. So I'm going to duplicate the composition. Oh, that's the wrong one. I duplicated the wrong sequence. We're actually looking at comp 2. So, right, let's close that. So important that you're able to make mistakes. A lot of animation is just pressing buttons and seeing if they do what you expect them to do. Hey, I think that worked. Now we are going to incorporate the title in some way. I'm not quite sure how it fits in yet. Let's go in with the text layer. My font for Ashon Film was a font called Quicksand. I wonder if I'm still going to use that one though. Does it look okay? It doesn't quite fit the vibe. Okay, it's a wee bit intense. Yeah, no, that's not quite the vibe. Ah, here we go. We're getting somewhere. Okay, I have gotten to the end of this animation and this is the finished result. I am so pleased with the new style, with the new font, with the overall look of it. I think it definitely says that this is a channel all about weird new wave stuff, and I'm really looking forward now to making more videos with this kind of style. I still need to make the intertitles, but I feel like this is a really strong start. I hope my chat about how I got into animation and taking a look at me animating this was helpful, maybe a little bit inspiring, I don't know. I personally think that getting into animation really helped me further my career because it's another element of the filmmaking process, and there are not that many animators out there, and so I always feel like there's a lot of opportunity to be had. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you in the next Ashon Film video. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this, and if you fancy watching some Ashon Film, head over there. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next Cinora video.